Today we are going to read from the book called Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But before we do that, I'll just chant some invocation mantras, and you can join me. Most welcome. Om Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Hare Krishna devotees, we are going to read from chapter 1 of the Krishna book, and is entitled The Advent of Lord Krishna. So once the world was overburdened by the unnecessary defense force of different kings, who were actually demons, but were posing themselves as the royal order. At that time, the whole world became perturbed, and the predominating deity of the earth, known as Bhumi, went to see Lord Brahma to tell her of her calamities due to the demonic kings. Bhumi assumed the shape of a cow and presented herself before Lord Brahma with tears in her eyes. She was bereaved and was weeping just to invoke the Lord's compassion. She related her calamitous position of the earth, and after hearing this, Lord Brahma became much aggrieved, and he at once started for the milk ocean where Lord Vishnu resides. But Brahma was accompanied by all the demigods headed by Lord Shiva, and Bhumi was also followed. Arriving on the shore of the milk ocean, Lord Brahma began to pacify Lord Vishnu, who had formerly saved the earthly planet by assuming the transcendental form of a boar. Now, it's very important for us to take note right at the very beginning. When there is a calamity, when there is a precarious situation, where do the demigods go? And the demigods are very powerful. They are empowered beings, empowered by the Supreme Lord. So they are very, very powerful. But when there's a calamity, there's a situation that's precarious, then where do they go? They take shelter of the Supreme Lord. So it's one thing that we need to understand. The demigods are very powerful, but they don't rely on their own power. They don't rely on their physical strength. They don't rely on their wealth. And they don't rely on their connections. Immediately, they take shelter of the Supreme Lord. So we need to take cognizance of this. When we have a problem, who should we take shelter of? This is the first point that we should realize right in the very beginning. There's a pastime in also further on, Lord Krishna, where there was a Brahmin in Dwarka who was losing all his children, one after the other, and he had lost about 6 children. And then he came to the king, and the king at that time was King Ugrasen. And there was also Krishna in Dwarka. So he came to the king and he started insulting the king that while you are present, how is this happening? While Krishna is present on the planet, how is this happening that I am losing all my children? So Arjuna, Krishna's close associate, he was also present, and he couldn't stand the way this Brahman was insulting Krishna. So he said to him that I will protect your next child. And the Brahman said, oh really? And what will you do if that you're not able to protect your child, protect my child? So then this Brahman said, then Arjuna said, if I don't, then I will light a fire and not consume myself in this fire. In other words, he will commit suicide. But he was so proud of the fact that he could protect this Brahman's child. So anyway, the Brahman's wife gave birth, and immediately that night, Arjuna was protecting the house of this Brahman. But the child disappeared. And now Arjuna was devastated. So he couldn't protect Brahma's child. So then, now what to do? He immediately got some wood, firewood, and he decided to light a fire and then himself burn himself in this fire and commit suicide. And while he was about to do that, Lord Krishna appeared on the scene. And Lord Krishna said to him that, Arjuna, have you forgotten that I am here? So we should all take cognizance of that fact as well. When we have a problem, just remember, Krishna is here. We should leave all our problems with Krishna. He is the cause of all causes and He knows what we are going through. So we go further on. In the Vedic mantras, now this is Lord Brahma, he has approached Lord Vishnu. In the Vedic mantras, there is a particular type of prayer called the Purusha Shukta. Generally, the demigods offer their obeisances unto Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by chanting the Purusha Shukta. It is understood herein that the predominating deity of every planet can see the Supreme Lord in this universe. Brahma, whenever there is some disturbance on this planet, and Brahma can approach the Supreme Lord, Vishnu, not by singing directly, but by standing on the shore of the ocean. There is a planet within this universe called Swetati, and on that planet there is an ocean of milk, and it is understood from various Vedic literatures that just as there is an ocean of salt water on this planet, there are various kinds of oceans on other planets. Somewhere there is an ocean of milk, somewhere there is an ocean of oil, and somewhere there are oceans of liquor and many other types of liquids. The Purusha Shukta is a standard prayer where the demigods recite to appease the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Priya Vishnu. Because he is lying on the ocean of milk, he is called Priya Vishnu. He is the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, through whom all the narrations within this universe appear. So after all the demigods offered the Purusha, the prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they apparently heard no response. Then Lord Brahma personally sat in meditation, and there was a message transmission from Lord Vishnu to Brahma. And Brahma then broadcast this message to the demigods. And what was that message? The Supreme Personality of Godhead would appear on the earth very soon, along with His supreme powerful potencies. And as long as He remained on the earth planet to execute His mission of annihilating the demons and establishing the devotees, the demigods should also remain there to assist Him. They should immediately take birth in the family of the Yadu dynasty, wherein the Lord would also appear in due course of time. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself, Krishna, would personally appear as the son of Vasudeva. Before His appearance, all the demigods along with their wives should appear in different pious families in the world, just to assist the Lord in executing His mission. The exact word used here is Tat Priya Artam, which means the demigod should appear on the earth in order to please the Lord. In other words, the living entity who lives only to satisfy the Lord is the demigod. The demigods were further informed that Ananta, the plenary portion of the Lord who is maintaining the universal planets by extending His millions of foods, would appear on the earth before Krishna's appearance. They were also informed that the external potency of Vishnu, that is Maya, with whom all the conditioned souls are enamored, would also appear by the order of the Supreme Lord, just to execute His purpose. After instructing and pacifying all the demigods, as well as Bhumi, with sweet words, Lord Brahma And the students, yes.
So at that time,
Yes. Okay, but prior to that, prior to Krishna's appearing, what is it that you notice?
The Lord didn't give direct audience to Brahma and the Devas.
That's it. The Lord, if we look at the demigods, they are such exalted personalities, yet they do not have access to Krishna. Even Brahma does not have access to Krishna. But we conditioned souls, we have service, we are engaging in devotional service to Krishna directly. We are cooking for Krishna, we make garlands for Krishna, we dressing Krishna, we offer him aarti so many times in the day. How is that possible? We are all conditioned souls. We are very conditioned. We have so many material desires, and with that comes all the other anarthas, anger, lust, greed, all that. We are so conditioned. Yet, we are able to engage with Krishna on such a personal level. How is that possible? Mahaprabhu's mercy, okay. Mahaprabhu's mercy actually is the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada is so merciful that even the conditioned nature of our nature, we are so conditioned, yet He's given us this mercy that we can engage in devotional service to Krishna. And like we sing or we offer pranams, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. We are offering, you will notice that most of the devotees that engage in service, especially on the altar, you place a picture of your Guru Maharaj. Before you perform any service, you offer worship to your Guru Maharaj. Because with our conditioned natures, how much can we offer? Are we even qualified to offer? But we offer this service to our Guru Maharaj, and they purify that service and they offer it to Srila Prabhupada, and he purifies it and offers it to his Guru Maharaj, and so on. This service is being purified throughout the parampara until it is fully purified, and then it's offered at the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. So you see how merciful Srila Prabhupada is, and how grateful we have to be to him that he has given us this opportunity to perform direct service to Krishna, which is not even available to the demigods and even Lord Brahma. So how grateful do we have to be to Lord Krishna? So, in this Krishna book, there's also all the pastimes that are recorded in Srimad Bhagavatam, where Srila Prabhupada has given us the purports. And in one of those purports, he mentions that Krishna has descended as the Krishna consciousness movement. Krishna is actually the movement. And how is he actually the movement? In the form of his holy names, in the form of his holy books, in the form of talking about Krishna, Krishna Katha, in the form of Krishna's service, in the form of the deity, and so many facilities for us to perform service to Krishna. And the extent of those services fill up the Krishna consciousness movement. So, how can we feel Krishna within the Krishna consciousness movement? It's by becoming more sincere, by giving dominance to our chanting, by giving dominance to all our services, making that the very purpose of our life. So, if everyone is just swept in chanting, like Prabhu, you were so ecstatic in your chanting just now, that is how you get to feel Krishna within this movement, because Krishna is present here, especially in His holy name. Now, we also see the mercy of Krishna, because the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, because Srila Prabhupada is likened to a bee. Now, a bee goes to every flower and it extracts the nectar, and then it transforms that nectar into honey. So in the same way, Srila Prabhupada has collected the nectar from all the Vedic scriptures and has condensed it in his purports to give us the essence of the scriptures. And what's that essence? That Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we, the living entities, are His servants. Jivera Swarupoy, Krishna Nityadas. And our purpose is to serve Krishna, and in that engagement, in that service, we find the most happiness. Rishikesha Sevana Bhakti Ujjate. We will find the highest bliss by serving Rishikesha, who is the controller of the senses. So let's read further on. Now we actually coming to the pastime of the advent of Lord Krishna. Once upon a time, Vasudeva, the son of Surasena, just after marrying Devaki, was going home on his chariot with his newly wedded wife. The father of Devaki, known as Devaka, had contributed a sufficient dowry because he was very affectionate towards his daughter. He had contributed hundreds of chariots completely decorated with gold equipment. At that time, Kamsa, the son of Ugrasena, in order to please his sister Devaki, had voluntarily taken the reins of the horses of Vasudev's chariot and was driving. According to the custom of the Vedic civilization, when a girl is married, the brother takes the sister and brother-in-law to their home. Because the newly married girl may feel too much separation from her father's family, the brother goes with her until she reaches the father-in-law's house. So here now, Kamsa is driving this chariot. While passing, while driving, Shri Radha Radhana ki jai, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai. So while the bride and bridegroom were passing along on the chariot, there were different kinds of musical instruments playing to indicate the auspicious moment. There were panchas, bugles, drums, little drums combined together, and they were vibrating a nice concert. The procession was passing very pleasingly, and Kamsa was driving the chariot, when suddenly there was a miraculous sound vibrated from the air, which especially announced to Kamsa, "Kamsa, you are such a fool. You are driving the chariot of your sister and brother-in-law, but you do not know that the 8th child of your sister will kill you." So Kamsa was the son of Ugrasena of the Bhoja dynasty. It is said that Kamsa was the most demoniac of all the Bhoja dynasty kings. Immediately after hearing the prophecy from the sky, he caught hold of Devaki's hair and was about to kill her with his sword. So now we see a direct contrast. Here in one stage, Kamsa was so affectionate towards his sister that he volunteered to escort her to her new home. And now all of a sudden, stage, Kamsa was thinking of showing some affection to his sister, but actually that affection was to please himself. Right? And now, when the situation changed, when we realized that this 8th child of Devaki is going to be the instrument of my death, then all of a sudden, killing her became what would please him. Right? So this is the demoniac mentality that when he heard this voice in the sky, his whole thought process changed. And now instead of showing affection to please himself, now killing Devaki will please him. So embarrassingly, this is the nature of most people in the world today. It's a selfish nature. They only want to do things that will please themselves. Now, in New York, in 1963, there's the Bronx Zoo, and they had a display. It's a zoo, so naturally they had very, very ferocious animals. And in one section, they displayed the most dangerous animals. And the first animal they displayed was the tiger. And they had a write-up of the tiger. This is the most dangerous animal, and all its write-up of how it attacks and so forth. And then they had a lion, and a write-up of the lion. Then a cheetah, and so forth. All the dangerous animals that you can find on this planet, they had them displayed in the zoo. And then on the last page, there was a huge board that said, "This is the most dangerous animal." And what was in that page? It was a woman. So, unfortunately, we are the most dangerous species. Why? Because an animal kills out of instinct just to satisfy his gain. But human beings can kill entire societies. So who is more dangerous? So this is the demoniac mentality. So now Vasudev, what does he decide to do? This is the scene. There's Kamsa holding Devaki's hair in one hand, and he's got his sword ready to kill Devaki. And Vasudev decides to preach to Kamsa. And he says to him that, "My dear brother-in-law Kamsa, you are the most famous king of the Bhoja dynasty, and people know that you are the greatest warrior and a valiant king. How is it that you are so infuriated that you are prepared to kill a woman who is your own sister at this auspicious time of your marriage? Why should you be so afraid of death? Death is born along with your birth. From the very day you took birth, you began to die. So all of us, we have a allotted number of breaths on this planet. And with our last breath, we are going to leave our bodies. Once Srila Prabhupada, one of the devotees, had just given birth to a newborn baby, and they invited Prabhupada to the hospital to come and view the child. And while all the devotees were, just cooing and hawing over the child and cooing the baby, Srila Prabhupada said, "It's been 1 hour since this child has been born. That means that he's 1 hour he has already lost in this world. He is 1 hour short of his death." So this is how a pure devotee looks at life. Is that we are all progressing towards our death. And the remaining time that we have, we should use it as consciously as possible to serve the Lord to our maximum. Right? those years already. Every moment, every second you are dying. Why then should you be so much afraid of death? Final death is inevitable. You may die either today or in 100 years. You cannot avoid death. Why should you be so afraid? Actually, death means annihilation of the present body. As soon as the present body stops functioning and mixes with the five elements of nature, the living entity within the body accepts another body according to his present actions and reactions. Now, remember, Lord Krishna mentioned this quite emphatically in Bhagavad Gita. Dehinosmin yata dehe komaram yogaram jara tata dehantra praptir dhiras tatra namuyate. As the embodied soul passes from body to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes on to another body at death. And a sober person is not bewildered by such an activity. He understands that the living entity, the soul within this body, is eternal. You are eternal. There is no death for the soul. Death is only present, or death is only for the body. So, Vasudeva continues. It is just like when a man walks on the street. He puts forward his foot. But when he is confident that his foot is situated on sound ground, he lifts the other foot. In this way, one after another, the bodies change and the soul transmigrates. See how the plant worms change from one twig to another so carefully. Similarly, the living entity changes his body as soon as the higher authorities decide on his next body. Now, this example of the plant worms is very interesting because if you look at a caterpillar, it's a plant worm that is being described here. It's actually a caterpillar. It steps forward and it raises its body like a loop until the bottom end touches the front, and it's like a whole loop, and then it moves forward. And in this way, it travels through from one leaf to the next. Now, like that, we, the living entities, are in this body, and then when our karmic reactions for this body are finished, then we move on to the next body that is generated according to the karmic reactions that we have created within this body. So, Vasudeva is explaining this to Krishna. This body is exactly like one of the bodies we always see in dreams. During our dream of sleep, we create so many bodies according to the mental creation. When we see gold, we have seen gold, and we have also seen a mountain. So in a dream, we can see a golden mountain by combining the two ideas. Sometimes in dreams, we see that we have a body that is flying in the sky, and at the time, we completely forget our present body. Similarly, these bodies are changing. When we have one body, we forget the past body. During a dream, we can make contact with so many new kinds of bodies, but when we are awake, we forget them all. And actually, these material bodies are the creations of our mental activities. But at the present moment, we do not recollect our past bodies. So, we are not able to remember all the bodies that I'll save Devaki's life, convince Kamsa not to kill Devaki, and in the future when the children come, we will cross that bridge when we get to it. So he says, Vasudeva thought of his wife as follows: for the present, let me save the life of Devaki, and later on, if there are any children, I shall see how to save them. He further thought, if in the future I get a child, we can call Kamsa. Just as Kamsa is thinking, then both Devaki and the child will be saved, because the law of providence is inconceivable. But now, some way or the other, let me save the life of Devaki. So Vasudeva, after deliberating on how to save the life of his wife, began to speak to Kamsa with great respect. Although Kamsa was the most sinful man, sometimes it happens that a most virtuous person like Vasudeva has to flatter a person like Kamsa, a most vicious person. This is the way of diplomatic transactions. So although Vasudeva was deeply aggrieved, he smiled outwardly. He addressed the shameless Kamsa in that way because he was so atrocious. Vasudeva said to Kamsa, my dear brother-in-law, please consider that you have no danger from your sister. You are waiting some danger because you have heard a prophetic voice in the sky. But the danger is to come from the sons of your sister, who is not present now. And who knows, they may or may not be sons in the future. Considering all this, you are safe for the present. Nor is there cause for fear from your sister, because Devaki has no power to kill Krishna. Devaki has no power to kill Kamsa. So why should he fear Devaki? If there are any sons born of her, I promise I shall present all of them to you for the necessary action. Kamsa knew the value of Vasudeva's word of honor, and he was convinced by his argument. For the time being, he desisted from the heinous killing of his sister. Thus Vasudeva was pleased and praised the decision of Kamsa. In that way, he returned to his home. So each year thereafter, in due course of time, Devaki gave birth to a child. Thus, she gave birth to 8 male children as well as 1 daughter. When the first son was born, Vasudeva kept his word of honor and immediately brought the child before Kamsa. It is said that Vasudeva was very much elated and famous for his word of honor, but he wanted to maintain his fame. Although it was very painful for Vasudeva to hand over the newly born child, Kamsa was glad to receive him and became a little compassionate with the behavior of Vasudeva. This event is very exemplary. For a great soul like Vasudeva, there is nothing considered to be painful in the course of discharging one's duty. A learned person like Vasudeva carries out his duties without hesitation. On the other hand, a demon like Kamsa never hesitates in committing any abominable action. It is said, therefore, that a saintly person can tolerate all kinds of miserable conditions of life. A learned man can discharge his duties without awaiting favorable circumstances. A heinous person like Kamsa can act in any sinful way, and a devotee can sacrifice everything to please the personality of Godhead. So, in this way, Vasudeva presented his firstborn to Kamsa, and Kamsa became satisfied by the action of Vasudeva. He was surprised to see Vasudeva keeping his promise, and by being compassionate upon him and pleased, he began to speak as follows: My dear Vasudeva, you need not present this child to me. I am not in danger of this child. I have heard that the 8th child born of you and Devaki will kill me. Why should I accept this child unnecessarily. You can take him back. When Vasudeva was returning home with his firstborn child, although he was pleased by the behavior of Kamsa, he could not believe in him because he knew that Kamsa was uncontrolled. And at that time, the great sage Narada came to Kamsa. He was informed of Kamsa's becoming passionate to Vasudeva and returning the firstborn child. Narada was very eager to accelerate the descent of Lord Krishna as soon as possible. He therefore informed Kamsa that in Vrindavan, personalities like Maharaj Nanda and all the Amrit men and their wives, and on the other side Vasudeva, his father Surasen and all the relatives in the family of Vrishni of the Yadu dynasty, along with all their friends and relatives, were actually demigods. Narada wanted Kamsa to be careful of them, and since Kamsa and his friends and advisors were all demons, demons were always afraid of demigods, and after being thus informed by Narada of the appearance of the demigods in the different families, Kamsa at once became very much alarmed. He understood that since the demigods he had indeed had already appeared, Lord Vishnu was coming soon. He at once arrested his brother-in-law Vasudeva and Devaki and put them behind bars. So, Vasudeva and Devaki had produced the other 7 children in the prison house of Kamsa in Mathura. So, I'm going to stop here. And I just want to quote to you a little pastime that was, it appeared in a book called Vedanta Dasi, and is also quoted in His Holiness Radhanath Swami's book, The Journey Within. And this is on the qualities of a devotee. Now, we look here, we examine the qualities of Vasudeva. He was such an exalted personality. So, the pastime goes like this. In the Vaishnava tradition, it's the Sri Vaishnava tradition, which is one of these sampradayas. There was an acharya there called Prasada. And he had a disciple once, and he was based in Sri Rangam. The Sri Sampradaya is generally associated in that area, and he was the Acharya for the Sri Rangam temple. And he had a disciple who asked this Prasadamata Acharya, what qualities do I need to develop to become self-realized? So, this Prasada Bhatta, he said to him that I think the best person that can answer your question is Anantacharya, and he is in Tirupati. So, best if you want the answer, you rather go and approach Anantacharya. So, Sri Rangam and Tirupati is quite a distance away, and at that time there were no trains, no rickshaws, no aeroplanes, so this disciple had to walk all the way to Sri Rangam. And it took him about 3 months to get there. And when he went, he approached Anantacharya and he asked him my dear Guru Maharaj, I have a question to ask you. And the question is, what is the qualities that I need to develop to become self-realized? So Anantacharya said to him, I need to think about this. I'll give you an answer shortly. So the disciple, in the meantime, he became engaged in service. And days passed, he was engaged in service in the Sri Rangam temple. Days passed, weeks passed, and months passed. But Anantacharya him with this question. So he was a little anxious, but anyway he engaged in service. Then one day they had a huge festival, and this disciple was engaged in service in cooking. And when they had finished cooking, they were serving all the visitors and guests that had arrived. And when all the guests had been served, then this disciple decided, okay, he will take prasad. So as soon as he was about to take prasad, Anantacharya came to him and said to him, my dear disciple, there are a few more guests coming right now. Can you serve them? So this disciple left his prasad and he went to serve those devotees. And once he had finished, he came back to take prasad. And as soon as he came, Anantacharya came back to him and said, my dear disciple, there's another round of devotees that have arrived. Please can you serve them? So then this disciple left his prasad again and went. So this happened continuously during the day. And finally at night, when everyone had rested, this devotee, this disciple was finally able to take prasad. And then at that time, Anantacharya appeared before him. And he said to him that you wanted to ask me a question, right? What is your question? And so then this disciple said, I wanted to know what are the qualities I need to develop to become self-realized. And so Anantacharya said to him, you should be like salt, you should be like a crane, you should be like a chicken, and you should be like you. That's all I have to say. So this disciple, he was very confused. And the next day, he decided to return to Sri Rangam. So when he went back to Sri Rangam, he met his guru, Prasarabhata. And he asked him, or Prasarabhata asked him, that, did you get your answer? And his disciple said, yes, I did get an answer, but I cannot fathom what it really means. So Prasarabhata asked him that what did Anantacharya say to you? And then he said to me, I need to be like salt, I need to be like a chicken, I need to be like a crane, and I need to be like me. I don't understand that. So then his guru, Prasarabhata, explained to him, and he said to him, now let's take it one at a time. Salt. Salt in a dish. If it is too less, the dish is spoiled, isn't it? If there's too less salt in a sabji, it's spoiled. And if there's too much salt, it's also spoiled. So salt has to be at the appropriate amount. So in the same way, a disciple has to live a balanced life. Right? Then he mentioned that salt remains hidden. Right? You don't see the grains of salt in your sabjis. It remains hidden, but it adds flavor to the dish. Right? So in this way, devotees, they engage in service, but they do not wait or look for the credit for that service. So they remain hidden in the background. That's a true devotee. And then he said, salt relinquishes its separateness and it melts with the other ingredients. Right? Similarly, all devotees, we should aspire to give up our false ego that separates us from the Supreme Lord. We give up our false ego. Remember, especially those of you that are studying Srimad Bhagavatam, you know that the first creation that was created by Brahma is false ego. Because false ego is a thing that separates us from Krishna with this false identity that I am this person, I am a male, I am a female, I am an Indian, I am a black. It's that false ego that I am certain person, I our false ego, and then our service to Krishna becomes so much more wholesome. So that was salt. Now chicken. He said you need to be like chicken. Now a chicken, you look at chickens when they are pecking on the ground. They select the nourishing seeds. They don't pick on everything. They select that which is nourishing and leave the rest. Now similarly, a devotee should look only at the good of others and ignore the rest. Amplify the good of others and ignore the rest. Right? And also, we see that a chicken, mostly like even with other birds, they will take the grain and they will distribute it to their young, distribute it to the other chickens within the vicinity. Now, in that way, a devotee takes this good qualities that is imbibed and he distributes that to every other devotee. Now, we look at a crane. A crane stands patiently. If you look at a crane, it stands on one leg in the water and it patiently has its head down. Why? Because it's waiting for the big fish to come. It bypasses all the small, insignificant fish and it waits for the big fish. Now, in the same way, a devotee should not let the small, insignificant sideshows to disturb him. He should concentrate on the big fish, which is his devotional service and his goal. Supreme goal is to go back home, back to Godhead. Do only that which is necessary to get you back to the spiritual world and ignore all these little side shows. Right? So that is a crane. Now the other aspect of a crane is that it is white in color. White signifies purity. And a devotee's heart should be like that, pure, saturated with purity, because it's this pure goodness only that will qualify one to go back to the spiritual world. And then, when there's a tidal wave, you don't find cranes near the ocean floor near the shore. You don't find cranes near the shore. You will only find them close to lakes and very, very smooth flowing rivers. You will not find them on the seashore because there are so much of turbulence and turbulent waters there. So in the same way, when a devotee is attacked by Asat Sangha, non-devotional association, he should move away from that. Like the crane doesn't remain on the seashore because there's so much of this turbulent waves. Instead, it goes to the calm, serene waters of the lake. And so, a devotee should look for the calm, serene association of other devotees. And in that way, he will advance. So the final one was, you should be you. Right? Now, why did he say you? Anantacharya, remember, he had tested him. This disciple was taking prasad, and then he said to him, no, go and serve those devotees. And he served them, he came back, and said, now go and do that. Now go and serve again, go and serve again. He was continuously testing this disciple. And from that, you can understand that this disciple was, he had all these qualities of a pure devotee. So that's why he said, you should be you. So in this way, Parasara Muni, he explained all these qualities to this disciple. And he said to him, even more. So, Hare Krishna, dear devotees, I will stop here. If there are any comments or questions you would like to ask, please do so. We have within us some very exalted devotees, so I don't know if I'm able to answer any questions, but there are some senior devotees who will be able to assist. Hare Krishna.
I noted that you said that the demigods take shelter of the Supreme Lord, Krishna or Vishnu. But in the past time that you were mentioning were the Brahmanas, that every time the Brahmanas had died, in that past time, Arjuna actually takes shelter of Lord Shiva in that past time. And Arjuna was a devotee. So I'll just read it. I was talking about I'm going to ask you, but anyway, I found it. I'll just read this. Arjuna remembered Lord Shiva and not his friend Krishna. He thought that since Krishna could not be protected to the Brahmana, it was better to take shelter of Lord Shiva. This is another instance of how a person takes shelter of demigods. This is explained in the Bhagavad Gita, Kamayas Kayasya Etigyana Prabhajyanta Anya Devata. A person who loses his intelligence because of greed and lust forgets the Supreme Personality of Godhead and takes shelter of the demigods. Of course, Arjuna was not an ordinary living entity. But here's the punchline. But because of his friendly dealing with Krishna, he thought that Krishna was unable to give protection to the Brahmana and that he would do better to remember Lord Shiva. Later it was proved that Arjuna's taking shelter of Lord Shiva instead of Krishna was not at all successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Yes. That pastime was actually orchestrated by Krishna as well, and actually by Mahavishnu, because Mahavishnu had wanted to take darshan of Lord Krishna. So eventually, he was actually taking those children away. So he knew that eventually Krishna will come to his planet, and then he could take darshan of Lord Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Mataji, you want to say something?
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. Very inspirational. You made some very lovely points, and the last narration of the Brahmana, the chicken and the salt, it was very, very wonderful actually. So thank you so much for that. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. No other questions? Shri Prabhupada